Always Be Nice to Your Neighbors, written by Christine Druga. Estimated reading time, 4 minutes. Okay. When someone asks you about your dream home, how do you respond? It might be an apartment in a big city, or a big house on a farm, or, if you're like me, a cozy house with a picket fence in the suburbs. My husband and I moved into my dream home about 5 years ago. It's located in a tiny town, one of those places where everyone knows everyone and no one locks their doors. About a 30-minute drive from the city. We thought we found the perfect place. We were so wrong. You see, the thing about people is that you never really know them. It's common in this kind of town, and everywhere really, to come across the type of people who seem to be the nicest and most normal human beings on the planet, but are differently monsters behind closed doors. Usually it's nothing more than hidden alcoholism or drug use, or secret affair or domestic abuse. But even Jeffrey Dahmer seemed like an okay guy, and we all know what skeletons were in his closet and fridge. The weirdness started about a few months ago when our new neighbor moved in next door. He kept to himself. He didn't talk to anyone except for the occasional visitors that came out of town to see him. They were a catalyst for rumors. I heard that he was a drug dealer, that he had been in and out of prison, and that he was cut out of his family's lives for touching his nephew or niece, but not reported for it out of pity. He was quiet and a little creepy, but he seemed okay to me. Apparently, I'm an idiot. A couple weeks ago, my sister was leaving my house late at night when she noticed that the dome light on her car was on. Someone had just been in there, it seemed. She ran back inside and alerted my husband, who then walked her back out and took a look around to see if he could find the intruder. They heard footsteps on my neighbor's porch, but it couldn't actually see anyone. My husband called out but received no response. The next day, he spoke with another neighbor about the incident to warn him to lock his car at night. That neighbor told my husband that he had spotted someone in the bushes across from his house 2 weeks prior and chased the person to the house next to mine before he lost the guy. A few days after the chase, someone broke into an upstairs window trying to get into his house while he and his family slept. The whole neighborhood was freaked out, and we had our suspicions that the new guy was the culprit, but we had no proof. No one had been able to see his face when he was busted. No one could say whether he had been chased to his house or if the person running had simply been on his porch or in his yard. Local police agreed to increase patrols in our area, and things quieted down for a while. That was, until this past weekend. It was late on Sunday around midnight when I heard what sounded like power tools running. There's a house nearby that's being renovated by the family that lives there, so I just assumed they were finishing a project before turning in or something. I didn't really care until about 45 minutes later when I saw flashing lights outside my window. I went outside to see 3 police cars, an ambulance, and a small crowd gathered in front of the house next door. No one seemed to know what the hell was going on for once. The only information that I could gather was that the old lady who lived a few doors down had called the police to file a noise complaint when the sound of the tools woke her up. I had been standing in front with the crowd for about 5 minutes before the officers came outside to move us away from the house and roped off the area of the crime scene tape. The coroner's van showed up in a short while later. It wasn't until the next day we finally got the story. 2 officers had responded to the noise complaint. They could hear tools running inside, but no one answered the door when they knocked. One of the officers looked into the window and noticed a pool of blood on the living room floor. They called for backup and entered the house. My next-door neighbor had killed some woman, dragged her down to his basement, and he was using a power saw to cut her up into pieces. When the police entered the basement, he panicked and used the saw to end his own life. Apparently, he almost completely decapitated himself. As gruesome as the details of this heinous act were, the murder-suicide wasn't the only thing that caused the most unrest in my little community. He had a large, hand-drawn map of the town hanging in his basement. Each house was drawn as an empty square, and each square had notes written inside. How many people lived in the house, whether or not they had dogs, the best time and place to enter the home undetected. He also had a stack of photos on the table near a map. He had taken the pictures of every house on our street, some at night, some during the day, and some from outside and some from within. And that was the story, guys. Tell me what you think.